Hello my night wolves and welcome back to another video on my channel. Look at, I'm back, yay! I have been thinking about starting to record again, and this is gonna be my first video. I wanted to tell you guys about my ex-best friend, and I have to tell you this story kind of from start to where how our friendship kind of fell apart. So I don't know, I feel a little weird about making this video, but I kind of want to tell this story, so here we go. Okay, so I had a best friend before my best friend that I have right now. Her name is Rebecca. That's my best friend that is my best friend right now. And then I had an ex-best friend, and her name was Beverly. And we were best friends from middle school up to high school, all through high school, and even a little bit after high school. We met in middle school, and we had lockers that were side by side to each other. And she had a hard time remembering my name, and I had a hard time remembering her name. Her name was Beverly. We called her Bev for short. Anyways, so we were best friends all the way up until high school. She graduated before I did. Because I decided that I was going to stay until high school until I was 21 because I needed more credits for college, so I decided to stay. I always went over to her house. I spent the night at her house. I didn't really like spending the night at their house because, I don't know, I don't want to go into details. I just didn't really like it, and her father kind of, like, I don't know, her father wasn't that bad of a man, but for some reason he made me kind of uncomfortable, and I didn't understand the reasoning why behind it. I just knew that he made me uncomfortable, but he was such a great man, and I don't know, he had some mental illnesses because he was once a veteran in the army, and you know, veterans go there and they get, like, they see some stuff and it messes them up, and then they come home and the army just doesn't, they just can't fall back into normal lifestyle. It does not happen that way. So he went into the army, and he came back and he had PTSD, I think that's what it is, and some other things, and he had some mental illnesses. I don't know what I was doing. I was hanging out, I was just chilling, and then I got a call or text from Beverly, and she's like, hey, my dad's taking us out for pizza. He wants you to come with. I'm like, okay. So yeah, I'm like, oh sure, I'd love to go get pizza. So I got in the car, and I realized it was everyone from our class, our friends group pretty much. And I was like, oh, I didn't know these people were coming, but I was like super happy to see them. So I was like, yeah, cool, we're all going to get pizza. That's so awesome. We got to the pizza place, and we were all sitting there, and he was sitting there talking, and we were eating, and he was eating, and then he got up and he's like, I'll be right back. And we're like, oh, okay. So we're just kept on talking, kept on eating, and then an hour went by, and I'm like, huh, that's weird. Beverly's dad said that he was going to be right back, and he wasn't back yet. It has been an hour. It's coming close to closing time for the restaurant. So we're like, Beverly, where's your dad? She's like, I don't know. I've been texting him. I've been calling him, and he's not answering. And we're like, oh, okay. So we're just hanging, and then the lady of the restaurant comes over, and she's like, hey, what's going on? Where's your ride? You need to pay and leave because they're about to close. And we're like, yeah, we're trying to get a hold of Beverly's dad. We told her what was going on, and for some reason we could not get a hold of her father at all. And it's because he was in the middle of a mental break. He had come off his medicine, and he pretty much abandoned us at the pizza place and left. He just up and left, and we didn't know why or anything like that. So a lot of us were scared and started to cry. A girl in our class, her name was Savannah, and she started freaking out and crying, and I'm like, girl, you need to calm down. I know this is scary, but you're gonna make everyone else scared and everyone's just gonna go into a panic mode, and we just don't need that right now. And even I was scared, and I started kind of tearing up, and I'm like, I can't I was like the one person that people came to talk to for advice and stuff like that, and I was like pretty much like the mom of the group, so I had to keep my cool. And yes, I was scared, but I kept my cool, and I'm like, okay, everyone calm down, we'll figure this out. So finally we got a hold of Beverly's mom. I don't know why she didn't answer those because I know she was calling her mom and her dad, and none of them were answering. And then finally Bev got a hold of her mom, and her mom came and picked us up. Her mom took everyone home and then dropped me back off at home. And I was so confused about the whole situation. And then later on we found out that he ended up going through like this mental break because of his PTSD and all that stuff like that. And he ended up going to a mental hospital to help him get back to normal, get back on his medicine and all that stuff like that. I wish, like, you know those missing people cases that are never solved? This is a case that has never been solved ever. It was still ongoing. I don't know if they're still, I don't know. It's so weird. We got done with this party, we came home, and then we found out that Beverly's dad had gone missing. He had checked himself out in the mental hospital and completely disappeared. No one knew where he was, and it's a real thing. I'll probably link some things down in the description if you want to go and check it out. And it was just like so weird because he would just up and disappeared, and no one knows why he did. And we think it was because he was still in the middle of having a mental break and stuff like that. And we don't understand why the hospital let him check himself out when he was in a bad state already. So we don't understand the reasoning why they let him check himself out or anything like that. It's been a very long time. This happened in 2012, and here it is 2020. So it's been a really long time. It's been 8 years. I feel like it's been longer than that. I feel like it was longer than that. Like, it's been, according to, I just did the math on my fingers, it's been 8 years, 2012 to 2020, and maybe almost 9 years, I don't know. And he has yet to be found. No one knows what happened. Police searched everywhere. They searched the woods that were near our house, because where I lived, we lived in a trailer park that was near woods. They took dogs out there. Hello, future me popping in. I just wanted to let you guys know something real quick that I kind of forgot to mention. Me and Beverly actually lived really close to each other. I lived in one trailer park, and then she lived up the street from me in another trailer park. And our trailer parks were kind of connected by woods, but there was a road that cut through the woods, so it kind of broke the woods up. I think even they went in through our woods just to make sure like he didn't travel. They thought that he might have went home to her house, so that's why they checked the woods, because they thought that he might have wandered home. So they thought maybe he got lost in the woods, so they went through all their woods, went through the woods that connected to where I lived. So yeah, I totally forgot about that part, so just wanted to pop in to let you guys know. Of course, while you're recording, you're trying to think of everything, and then you forget, and then when you're going through the editing, you realize, oh, I forgot about this part. So yeah, they did searches, and one person claimed that they had saw a man that looked like Beverly's dad on the highway, and so they went to where they supposedly saw him, did a whole sweep of that area, they haven't seen him or anything, and he is still missing to this day. And it's been a very long time to tell you guys this part, because it has to do with how our friendship kind of fell apart. But anyway, so a rumor had gone around that her mother had done something to the father. I don't know exactly what. People claimed that she might have killed him and did something with the body, but I don't know. I don't know. So, but I'm just like, you guys are just making the situation even worse with what's going on. And I'm like, this is crazy talk and stuff like that. But her actions after he disappeared kind of proves that maybe she did do something. I don't know, like, so it wasn't long after he had disappeared. She packed up a whole bunch of her stuff, put it in her van, and left. Left the kids and everything. She pretty much abandoned them. She just packed up all of her stuff and left. And it wasn't even that long after her husband disappeared that she ended up disappearing herself. And he wasn't even gone, I don't even think a week. And she packed up all her stuff and left. And she went, I don't know where she went, but I know she got on a plane and she was gone. That her husband disappeared, and not even a week after he disappeared, she ended up packing up all her stuff and leaving the kids right there. Like it was just crazy. But I remember I was hanging out, chilling, and I got a call from this lady that I used to do a group with. I got a call from her, and I'm like, hello. And she's like, hey, this is her last name was Afinati, but I can't remember her first name. Why can't I remember her first name? But I'm like, oh hey, and she's like, so something's come up with Beverly, and I would like to have you help her out. And I'm like, oh yeah, definitely I can help her. What does she need? And blah blah blah. And she's like, well, her mom left, and we have no idea where she went. And I'm like, oh, so she needs a place to stay and whatnot. And they're like, yeah. So we're like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll let her stay with us as long as she needs to and whatnot. And I'm like, what's going to happen with her brothers and sisters? Because she had two brothers and one sister, and they were pretty young still, so they ended up in foster care, but they all ended up in the same foster care together, which is very shocking because normally when kids go into foster care, they tend to split them up and not keep them together. But luckily they got lucky and all the kids stayed together and didn't get split up, and that was absolutely amazing. So we took in Beverly, and she lived with us for I think a couple of months. We got her to my mom's house, to our house, because I was still living with my mom at the time. And I just remember she was like super down and really sad, and I was like, I kind of want to ask her, but then I'm like, I kind of don't want to ask her. And then I finally was like, you know what, let's just ask her. I'm like, so what happened? And she broke down and she told me, like, I don't know, me and the kids were just hanging out, and mom went to the bedroom. Next thing I know, she was coming out with bags. I asked her what she was doing, where we were going, and she's like, we're not going anywhere. And she's like, oh, okay. And she was kind of confused by that because she came out with like a whole bunch of bags, but she said we're not going anywhere. And then next thing I know, the van was leaving and she was gone. It was so freaking weird. It was a weird time in my life for sure, and I've never had like anything like that happen to me until that moment. And it's a mystery, and it's a case, and it's gone cold. No one's seen the dad, heard from the dad, nothing. The mom left to wherever land. She did contact Beverly eventually, and she actually had another daughter that was much older than Beverly, and we were kind of starting to become friends with her. She was starting to come back into her mother's life, and then we found out that later on, after everything had happened, and we were hanging, and Beverly was living with us and stuff like that, we found out by the older sister that this isn't the first time this happened. Like, her father didn't up and disappeared, but her mom was like all suddenly packing up stuff, and she left them and high and dry without any warning. She just left, and she didn't understand why or anything like that. And then found out later on that she ended up remarrying, which is Beverly's dad, that's now missing. And she is like, it's kind of like that from back then, but the only difference is that the father disappeared and then she ended up disappearing. So after about almost a year living with us, Beverly decided that she wanted to live out on her own. We're like, okay, cool. So we helped her, looked into apartment complexes for her, and we finally found a good apartment complex. It actually is the complex that I'm living in right now. She actually is still living here. We just don't talk to each other. And they go off your SSI so she can live here on her SSI. I'm popping in here real quick and I'm going to pop some stuff on the screen. I did some research. I always mix up SSI and SSDI, which is two different things. SSI is for people that are 65 and older, I think. And SSDI is for when you're younger. I don't know. I always mix them up, always. Ever since I got on it, everyone's like, what do you got, SSI or SSDI? And I'm like, what's the difference between the two? There's a big difference between the two. So, of course, I'm popping up what they are really for and stuff like that so you guys can understand, because I mixed them up, so sorry for that. So, throughout this thing, I'm going to say SSI probably a few more times, but it's actually SSDI that we got her on, not SSI. I'm on SSDI, obviously, because I'm not old. It's like that. Oh yeah, we also helped get her food stamps, which helps you buy food. We got her food stamps, we got her SSI, we helped her get her apartment, blah blah. And she promised my mom that she would give my mom a little bit of money for helping her and for letting her stay with her for as long as she did. And so I went to spend the night at Beverly's house, and like I think it was like the third, either it was the second or the third time I stayed with Beverly. I don't remember. But I went there and Mom dropped me off and I got there, and Beverly was at the time working at a McDonald's, so it was really close by so she could walk back and forth from work. And Beverly's like, oh, I'm gonna go to work. I'm like, okay. So I got up when she got up, even though I didn't have to, but I did anyways. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll see you when you get home. She's like, alright. So she left and I was just hanging out, and Beverly, when she was living with us, she went through a moment where she was threatening to kill herself because she was really depressed, which I don't blame the girl, because she went through a lot. She lost her father, and then turned around, her mother just up and left her. It was just, she was going through a lot, so she went through depression, and then she said that she was going to kill herself. So my mom called the police and they ended up taking her to the mental hospital, which ended up being the same mental hospital that her dad went to. While she was in the hospital, they told her to journal everything, even her feelings and whatnot. And normally, I'm not a person to snoop. I do not snoop and I do not read people's personal things. But I don't know what possessed me that day to look through her journal. I really do not know. Gnawed at me. It's like, read the journal, read the journal. And I'm like, fine, fine. So I went and got her journal out of where she hid it, because when she hid her journal, she hid it in front of people, so they knew exactly where to go to read the journal. So I saw where she hid it, and I went over to her journal, and I opened it, and I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this, but I opened it where she last wrote. I went to the page where she last wrote, which was the night before, and she wrote her feelings in there about me, and I was just, she called me bad names that I never, like, she wrote exactly how she felt about me. And she called me annoying, she called me fat, and that she was never going to pay my mom back. But that's not how she worded it. She worded it in a horrible way. She's talked really bad about my mom, and you do not write bad about my mom. Like, you can write bad about me, I don't care. You can call me a bitch, you can call me whatever you want. But the moment you call my mom a bad word, my mom was nothing but nice to her. She even bought her stuff for Christmas when she didn't have to. My mom was struggling, and she bought stuff for her when she didn't have to. But anyway, so she said a whole bunch of bad things about me and a whole bunch of bad things about my mom. She said that I was eating all her food when I wasn't. When she ate, I ate. I didn't eat. I didn't eat a lot when I was there. So I don't know where she was getting that I was eating all her food when I wasn't. She was just saying a whole bunch of horrible things. I'm not gonna repeat everything, but it was just horrible. I just remember being super pissed. So pissed that the fact I was holding on to her diary, reading it, and I just crumpled the like I literally crumpled the diary in my hands, and then I shut it, and I threw the freaking diary back where she hid it and slammed it shut. Called my mom up. I'm like, Mom, come and get me right now. And she's like, what's going on? I'm like, I'll explain everything when you come and get me. Just come and get me. She's like, okay, I'm on my way. So I packed up all my stuff, walked out, slammed the door shut, and walked down, waited for my mom to come and get me. She came and got me. I got in the car, and I told her everything while on our way home. I deleted and blocked her number, so she couldn't text me, because she had my number, and she could have just been like, why were you reading my journal, blah, 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 but because you could tell that somebody was reading her journal because I crumpled it because I was pissed. So she would know immediately that I had read her journal and why we stopped being friends because of whatever she said in her journal. I never thought badly about Beverly at all up until that moment. Now I can't stand her at all. I really don't know why she hated me that badly, cause like all I did was try helping her, and like I've never like met anyone that hated me like that. I don't know how long she hated me for. I don't know if it just started when her mom disappeared and we tried helping her. I don't know. Maybe she always hated me and she just dealt with me because she just didn't want to, like, I don't know. I don't know. Me and her are no longer friends. We do live in the same complex. I do see her around, but I don't say anything to her. She doesn't say anything to me. That is the end of this video and the end of this story. But yeah, this is an actual true story that actually happened, and it is a case that I don't know if they're still going. I don't know if they're still doing it. It's been 8 years. No one has seen, heard, or anything like that of the dad, so we don't know like what's going on with that. I know that the mother is living. I seriously can't remember where the mother is living, but the mother is living somewhere. And she's remarried now. I don't think she's having any more kids because like girl was old as a dinosaur. And so she's definitely not going to be having any more kids. I thank God, because she's already put in a lot of kids. Like she had a kid before she had Beverly, and her three brothers, her brother, her two brothers, and her sister, and then Beverly. And then later on, we found out by her sister, Beverly's older sister, the one from the previous marriage before she disappeared on them. She found out that Beverly has been talking to her mother and that they're on good terms, which is shocking because of everything that she did. If my mother did that to me, I think I would hate my mother, but she surprisingly doesn't hate her mom. And I would be like mad because like she abandoned you and your brothers and sisters and went off, and now she's married to a new guy where she's still, well, she was still married to her father, but because he's been gone for so long, she can now get remarried because he's been gone for so long that they're like, yeah, you can get remarried because he's gone, and they don't know what, like, but they still haven't found him. Like, no one knows where he is. It's crazy. But yeah, that is the end of this video and the end of my story of my ex-best friend and the missing father, I guess. So yeah, it's a cold case / unsolved mystery. But yeah, that's the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Ring that bell if you want to see more videos from me. Subscribe if you want to. And I'll see all you beautiful night wolves in the next video. Goodbye.
Love is all we'll ever try.